Getting the federal money flowing, how a bipartisan bill is helping the states most vulnerable. Plus, a mix-up in the federal case against Aaron Schock, why the release of information confused U.S. prosecutors. And a policy paper from Donald Trump, what the Republican has to say about immigration.
Now, from your local election headquarters, this is Central Illinois on the Record.
I see on two sides a labor organization and a governor still negotiating in good faith.
While some say negotiations with the governor and state workers are A-OK, members of the Senate are thinking differently. Good morning and welcome to Central Illinois on the Record. Lawmakers in the upper chamber of the state assembly voting to override a Rauner veto on a bill about unions. Now, the bill would allow workers to use an independent mediator in the event of a deadlock. The governor says the bill takes away his power to negotiate a fair contract with state workers.
And they never proposed a bill like this with Pat Quinn in office. So I think there's a measure of hypocrisy there.
Well, despite a gubernatorial veto, Senate Democrats overrode a bill allowing state workers to seek independent arbitration instead of a strike.
This forces a reasonable compromise. One side is not going to put an unreasonable offer on the table that the arbitrator could reject.
Republicans say the governor hasn't even had the same amount of time to negotiate as past governors. But Democrats say Rauner's anti-union rhetoric is forcing the decision.
There's a reason why we're in this position today, and that reason is because of the words that our governor has used over the past 8 months.
Wednesday's agenda wasn't just about unions.
They want to go to college.
But also students.
They want to get jobs. They want to perform. They want to be taxpayers.
Democrats passed $370 million to fund state MAP grants, which helps low-income students go to school.
Don't like to have this uncertainty about their college education. They want to pursue education.
The amount matches Rauner's proposed funding for the program, but Republicans say they can't support new spending without matching revenue or cuts.
You're going to run out of money this fiscal year, and that promise to students, their parents, to whoever, isn't worth the paper it's printed on because there isn't the money to actually pay for it.
That was Matt Porter reporting. The arbitration and MAP grant bills now head to the House, which returns to Springfield Tuesday. The Senate is back in session on September 9th. The state now has billions of dollars in federal money to spend. Governor Rauner signed the bill that allows the state to fund programs that help the most vulnerable. A spokesman says the governor signed the bill because, quote, it will help those in need without adding to the state's budget deficit. A measure that helps with cancer screenings and energy and food assistance takes immediate effect. A mistake by federal prosecutors means former Congressman Aaron Schock didn't have to deal with a video conference before a federal judge. Chicago Sun-Times reporting the people investigating Schock raised questions about a leak of documents to the media. However, the information made public was information contained in federal court filings. Schock resigned in March after questions about how his office and PAC spent campaign cash. We're closing in on the special general election to replace Schock. Republican State Senator Darren LaHood will square off with Democrat Rob Mellon on September 10th. Mellon was on the show last week. You can hear more from him at ciproud.com.
But now I feel, that it's in the hands of God.
Former President Jimmy Carter says he has melanoma that spread throughout his body, including to his liver and brain. He started radiation treatments to try to stop the disease from spreading further. Cancer was likely not a surprise. His parents, brother, and 2 sisters all died from the disease. Carter is 90 years old. Republican frontrunner Donald Trump releasing a policy paper detailing for the first time how he would address illegal immigration. Tom Foreman takes a closer look at as Trump's Republican opponents are passing judgment on that plan.
Close to 700 miles of the 2,000-mile border with Mexico is already fenced and heavily monitored. Finishing the job with the state-of-the-art wall and all it would take to secure that border could cost close to $33 million per mile based on one government estimate. Whatever the cost, Trump says, no problem.
I will build a great wall on our southern border, and I will have Mexico pay for that wall.
If Mexico won't play along, Trump proposes a torrent of fees on Mexican citizens, corporate CEOs, and diplomats who visit the U.S., possibly tariffs and cuts to foreign aid, too. But Mexico is the United States' third largest trading partner, and all of that could cost the U.S. as well. so his opponents are not impressed.
And this is not a negotiation of a real estate deal, okay? This is international diplomacy, and it's different.
Trump also wants to deal with the 11 million immigrants living in the U.S. illegally.
But they have to go.
The deportation rate has been near 400,000 per year. But to get rid of all those folks, deportations would have to soar almost 28 times higher. And even if he's talking about only those with criminal records, it's not clear how he would find them or fund it. And then there is the 14th Amendment, ratified in 1868, which says all persons born in the United States are citizens of the United States. Trump wants to change that, arguing that if two people are here illegally and have a baby, that child should not automatically be a U.S. citizen. But legal scholars say that would require changing the Constitution, so even many proponents of the idea admit
it will be litigated. There isn't any doubt about it.
In other words, Trump can say he'll end the birthright rule, but he can't do it, even if he were president. Tom Foreman, Washington.
This week, the conservative-leaning editorial board of the Wall Street Journal wrote, quote, Mr. Trump is bidding to make the GOP the deportation party. The board also said if Republicans want to lose in 2016, they'll follow Trump's anti-immigrant siren. Breaking down the race for Congress, we're sitting down with the Dirksen Center. Plus, she's a leader on campus and on the path to a career in engineering. We're going on the record with the student body president of Bradley University. All right, welcome back. Joining me now to talk about the 18th Congressional District race from the Dirksen Center, Frank Mackaman. Frank, thank you very much for stopping by.
Pleasure to be here, Paul.
So for the people at home who don't know or aren't aware, what do you do at the Dirksen Center?
The Dirksen Center is located in Everett Dirksen's hometown, Pekin. We're a nonprofit organization, and our mission is to help people better understand the United States Congress, which is not a simple task.
It certainly isn't, and the 18th Congressional District, of course, is in the middle of a race. We've got a general election coming up in September between a familiar name, a LaHood, and Democrat Rob Mellon. Very safe Republican district.
Absolutely. The last Democrat to serve in this district left office in 1917. I think the average margin of a Republican victory since 1994 is with 67% of the vote. Undeniably a Republican district.
So what would it take for a Democrat to win here, short of maybe redistricting?
In the long term, probably some upheaval in the political system. I don't see a precedent for a district like this flipping party majority in a reasonable time if you're a Democrat looking for a legitimate shot at winning.
You heard a lot of pundits talking after the primary election that the Republican primary is really the general election, that's the result. So I don't want to write off Rob Mellon, certainly, but for people who are saying, okay, Darren LaHood is going to be the 18th district's next congressional representative, what can people expect from Darren LaHood, and how would that be different from the way his father ran things when he was there?
I think if you look at their positions and voting records, that Darren LaHood could fairly be characterized as more conservative than his father. But I think what's more important is that the definition of conservatism has changed. Ray LaHood had a very conservative voting record in the U.S. House of Representatives. He was proud of his conservative voting record. His son is a conservative, but the definition of conservatism has moved a little bit.
So what can voters expect if they send Darren LaHood to Congress that they're going to get back from him? What kind of tangible things can we see here?
I think one of the things any newly elected member needs to decide is what role will they play, and there are a variety. He can decide, I want to be a legislator and make my mark in lawmaking. He could decide, I want to be a constituent service-oriented member, and as Ray LaHood was. Ray called himself the mayor of the district. He could decide that he wants to move up in the party leadership, and that requires a different set of skills. So what the district can expect from Darren LaHood depends on how he defines his job.
Well, that'll be interesting to see in the near future, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. All right, well, Frank Mackaman from the Dirksen Center, thank you very much for spending some time with us. Still ahead, politics and young people. We're talking to a young leader in Central Illinois about connecting with college kids. And the Clinton campaign is fighting back how it's responding to the email controversy. Welcome back. Joining me now, the student body president of Bradley University, Sarah Handler. Sarah, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so you are the student body president at Bradley University, yes, as I just mentioned. So what does that mean for people at home who aren't familiar with college leadership?
Sure. So basically my job is to connect the students with the Bradley administration and be a liaison to make sure that any needs they have, any concerns they have are communicated to the administration in a way that will let them make changes that help the student body.
We've often heard that there are not enough women in politics. You have stepped up to be a woman leader
Sure.
on campus. But you are also kind of treading a new path as well, because we also hear that there aren't enough women in STEM,
Correct.
Science, technology, engineering, and math. You're an engineering major.
Yes, I am. So I have an interesting blend. I'm an engineering major with a political science minor, really hoping to blend the two, because we do need more women in STEM, and we definitely need more women in politics. And we also need those who can communicate both of them and can really bridge that gap to make more STEM policies that are receptive to the needs of women.
Now, MSNBC highlighted you as a young political leader and talked about engineering and talked about student leadership. And they also talked about some advice that you were given, dare to fail.
Yes, that is probably the most helpful piece of advice I've ever gotten. It was told to me in high school right after I had applied for a leadership position and didn't get it. And it was truly devastating to me at the time. You know, I really wanted this, and they said to me, you know, dare to fail, dare to do this again, because it becomes easier. And I think that's something that, especially for women, where when you fail, it feels like, okay, and not only have I failed, but I've also failed other women by not getting this leadership position. And it really helped me realize, you know what, I have to fail. I have to take these risks, because by taking them, I will be able to achieve new things. And so now it's to the point where if I'm not failing often enough, I feel like I'm not trying enough things. So I think daring to fail, especially for young women, is incredibly important.
So talk about your role a little bit when it comes to student leadership, being in engineering, and being a woman, and kind of combining those things and pushing as hard as you do to succeed.
Sure. So I think, you know, those are all my identities, and I think in the past there has been the misconception that they are mutually exclusive. You know, you can't be an engineer and a politician. You can't be a woman and an engineer. You can't be a woman and a politician. And I think part of my role is to show that these aren't mutually exclusive. You can be all three, and you can be all three incredibly well and really succeed and grow in those roles. And so I think a lot of what I do is serve as a role model to young women. I also coach a Girls on the Run team, which is, for anyone who hasn't heard of it, one of the most rewarding organizations, and showing young girls that yes, I'm a woman, yes, I am political, yes, I am an engineer, and that's okay, and that's a great thing to be. And I think that is a major component of my role, not only as student body president, but as a young woman.
So if people want to learn a little bit more about you, you're active on social media.
I am on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, all the above.
And if they want to learn more about Girls on the Run?
They can go to girlsontherun.org. The Central Illinois region encompasses Springfield, Peoria, the surrounding area, and I would highly encourage people to get involved.
Awesome. All right. Sarah Handler is the student body president at Bradley University, headed back to school next week. Best of luck.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. Still ahead, the On the Record panel talks immigration and the race for the White House. Plus, saying no to a nuclear deal with Iran. We'll look at poll numbers ahead of a congressional vote. Welcome back. Joining the On the Record panel this week, Brad McMillan from Bradley University's Institute for Principled Leadership in Public Service, and Chris Kiergaard returning again as well from the Peoria Journal-Star. So thank you both for being here.
Good to be here.
All right, so we've talked about the state budget in the past, but I want to shift to presidential politics this week and the topic of immigration, because about a week ago, Republican presidential candidate Donald Trump released a policy page on immigration, and it actually sparked a bit of a debate that was somewhat substantial in that the media has criticized Donald Trump for lacking substance. So now we're talking about immigration, something that everybody acknowledges needs to be fixed, but did we make any progress on it this week?
I'm not entirely convinced that we did, partly because we're so early in the campaign, and partly because you never really know if you've made any progress until it's translated into concrete legislative action that you can build a bipartisan majority around. If you can't do those things, it's very difficult to get something accepted.
But Brad, if we're going to have the campaign cycle as long as it's going to last, as long as we know it lasts, is it important to talk about these issues now instead of just simple platitudes?
Oh, absolutely. And I do think Trump's position paper sparked a lot of political debate this week. And, you know, the immigration issue is one where if you look at the presidential candidates, both on the Republican side and the Democrat side, very different approaches to that issue. And it really is a way for voters to try to decide, you know, who they're going to get behind. And Trump obviously has a very hardline position, wants all 11 million illegal immigrants deported, wants to have Mexico pay for building the big wall, and claims that he can get that done.
And he wants to change the Constitution when it comes to birthright citizenship, which is obviously something that a president cannot do.
Certainly cannot do unilaterally, which gets us back into the difficulty of building coalitions. And as Brad mentioned, the challenge when you have both parties' immigration positions that are so at odds with one another, you need to be able to build agreement around a central theme. I'd also say this, that Trump really had to roll out some type of concrete policy proposal on immigration because it got people talking about that as an issue rather than some of the, let's say, less than acceptable comments that he had made before with regard to some illegal immigrants. And he needed to get off that as an issue and on to a substantial policy issue. So he was forced into it by his own words.
So the opinions and thoughts on immigration are divergent, not just within each party, but obviously across party lines as well. So on the Republican side, who benefits most from Donald Trump bringing up this immigration issue? Is it him because he can say, well, I'm rolling out policy issues, or is it somebody like Jeb Bush or Scott Walker?
Well, you know, I think that it actually would benefit somebody more like Rubio, in my view, because, you know, he played a leadership role in putting together the comprehensive immigration reform bill that passed the Senate. And so those candidates that have shown substance on the immigration issue and a different approach than Trump can differentiate themselves, I think, the best. But it definitely is an important public policy issue, and you know, it's going to get more important when the number of Republican candidates is not 15 and it's down to a handful.
The Wall Street Journal editorial board, after Trump's comments on immigration, said if the Republicans want to lose again in 2016, they should continue on this path. Obviously, the Latino vote is a big block, and Mitt Romney did not get the support that he needed, in addition to obviously support across the board. So what do Republicans need to do to connect with Latino voters?
I think, as they've done in other formats and with other ethnic or racial groups over time, often unsuccessfully in recent years, they need to connect any of their discussion onto the issue of economics and what the economics of the issue means, particularly for a continually expanding Latino middle class, African American middle class. Any of those is where they are most likely, I tend to think, to pick up support, and they need to gear any of their policies toward that on the immigration issue as well. But speaking about trying to deport all 11, 15 million, whatever the accepted number is, illegal immigrants to the country, I think turns off more than just those individuals who certainly would not be voters, but turns off others within their groups as well.
You know, I think the Republican Party has just missed the boat when it comes to the Hispanic population. Many Hispanics actually agree with Republicans on family values and conservative principles, but if you take such a hardline approach on immigration, that is the one thing that they simply won't support.
Kind of changes their whole political thought.
Right, and if there was some moderation, you know, some reasonable pathway to citizenship that was part of a Republican candidate's platform, I think they could pick up, you know, a significant new demographic and really have a really good shot at taking over the White House. But I just personally don't believe a hardline stance on immigration is going to result in a Republican in the White House.
That's going to be very interesting to see. Thank you both for joining us again. Brad McMillan from Bradley University, Chris Kjærgaard from the Peoria Journal-Star. Thank you both for joining me on the program. I appreciate it. All right, is the fifth time the charm? Why a doctor is running for Congress, this time as an independent. A doctor in Bloomington is setting his sights on 2016, challenging Republican Congressman Rodney Davis. This time, David Gill is running as an independent rather than a Democrat. This will be Gill's fifth run for Congress. His last run ended in a loss to Davis in the 2012 election. Hillary Clinton's campaign rejecting the idea she knew emails in her private server contained classified information. State Department has reviewed 20% of the 30,000 pages submitted. 305 have been flagged for potentially containing classified information. Finally, a new poll suggests most Americans want Congress to reject the nuclear deal with Iran. According to the latest CNN ORC poll released Thursday, 56% of Americans don't want the deal. Congress will vote on the plan next month. Many anticipate President Obama using his veto pen to keep that agreement intact. That's going to do it for this edition of Central Illinois on the Record. You can always stay in touch with us using social media. Connect with WMBD and me on Facebook and Twitter. Use the hashtag CIOTR. We'll see you next week.
The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of WMBD, WYZZ, or Nexstar Broadcasting Group.